What's good, YouTube? It's Aaron from Music Mode. Welcome to a brand new video. Today we're going to go ahead and remake From Scratch Mexico City by Travis Scott. The tempo for this one is 143 beats per minute, and the track is produced by Tay Keith. We're going to start off with the main marching brass sound that you hear throughout the entire track, or at least the snippet that we heard. So let's get straight to it. So for that sound, we're going to go over to our library browser. We're going to go over to, let's go over to orchestral. We'll go over to brass, and we'll go over to trombones. Let's go ahead and draw on the main pattern. All right, we're just going to layer up the top note as well. This one's going to be softer though. All right, so there's the main pattern. Let's go ahead and add in a cue and take out some of those highs. All right, next we're gonna bring in a different type of brass, a French horn. And for that, we're gonna go over to our library browser. We're gonna go down to Legacy. We'll go over to Logic. We'll go over to Orchestral. We'll go over to Brass, and we're gonna bring in the French horns crescendo. This one right over here. Let me just make this a little bit bigger. All right, and we're gonna copy down the same pattern, and we're just gonna take out this top note here. Bring it down one octave. All right, for our next brass instrument, let's bring in a trumpet. We're gonna go over to Logic's library over here. We're gonna go over to Studio Horns. We'll go over to Single Instruments, and we'll bring in the Studio Trumpet 3. We'll copy down the same pattern, except we're gonna make this a little bit, set it up, pull it up a higher octave, and pull down the velocity. Bring it down in volume a bit. All right, next let's bring in some choirs. We're gonna go ahead and just copy this down, this pattern over here. Let's go over to Logic's Alchemy. Actually, we have the new Logic, so we just go Control Command P, and we'll bring in Alchemy. And I'm gonna bring in the preset here, or we're gonna search for it at least. We're gonna type in Pagan. Oh, that's not how you spell Pagan. This one right here, the Pagan Assembly. Hit play. So we don't want all that stuff. We're just gonna stretch this last note out a bit. Then we're gonna select all of our notes, and we're going to layer it over 2 octaves. Let's open up an EQ. Make it a little bit more narrow sounding. All right, we'll mix it in. All right, next let's bring in a second choir. Let's go ahead and duplicate this up, copy over the MIDI pattern as well. And for this, we're gonna go over to our choir category, or sorry, vocals. And we're just gonna use the first preset here, or the second one, the Aether choir. Just to give it a little bit more space to this other vocal. Kind of fills it up a bit. All right, we got to continue layering this up to make it sound huge. Let's bring in some staccato brass instruments. For this, we're gonna go over to Logic's library. We're gonna go to Legacy Orchestral, Logic Orchestral. We'll go over to brass, and we'll bring in the French horn staccato. So we're going to go ahead and close that up, take this down, and so for this one, we're actually not going to be playing all the notes. It's going to go something like this. So it's going to be playing a different pattern actually. What we're going to do here is just duplicate that down, or sorry, bring it down one octave. Maybe one more octave. Let's see if we bring it down one more. That's better. All right, now let's go ahead and add yet another brass instrument. Create a new software instrument track. We'll go over to our library browser. We're gonna go back into our legacy Logic orchestral brass. We are living in the section for this track here. And let's go over to the French horn section over here. And we're gonna draw in a new pattern here. It's sort of like a counter melody. So it's gonna go like this. Oh, that's a little too early. I want this to be a little shorter here. Stretch that out. All right, let's bring in another set of French horns, staccato this time. So I think we already have one somewhere here, this over here. Let's go ahead and duplicate that down. We're just gonna copy this up as well. Just to give it a little bit more punch. All right, let's go ahead and bring in another brass instrument. We're gonna go over to orchestral. We're going to go over to brass, and we'll go over to the French horns, and we're gonna draw in a, let's just pull this down here. I think we're just gonna use this. So we just want this portion of it to be played out. All right, and we're gonna change the articulation here over to a crescendo so it builds up in anticipation or builds up in sound. So in the background, it's gonna sound like this. All right, last but not least, we need to add in the tuba in the background to give us our bass notes. Go over to our library browser. We'll go over to Legacy. We'll go to Jam Pack Symphony Orchestra this time. We'll go over to, where are we going to? We're gonna go over to horns, and we're gonna go over to the extra tuba staccato. And let's go ahead and draw on that pattern. Actually, we're going to build this up. So we're going to go from a quieter velocity and we're going to build it up to a louder hit. And we'll do the same thing here as well. All right, now let's go ahead and group all these tracks together and make it sound like it's coming from an arena. First thing we're gonna do is bring in EQ, and we're gonna tame up some of the highs again, and we're gonna tame some of the lows, so just a little shelf, top and bottom. And then we'll go Control Command P, and we'll bring in an ensemble effect just to make it a little bit more wider, softer sounding. Use the default setting, loads up. And then we're going to put it in a space, and perfect timing. We just got the QRS, which has a nice arena preset. We're going to go Control Command P to load up that plugin. We'll go to the Quantec Room Simulator, and we're going to go over to a large room, the arena, and this is what it sounds like. The only thing we're going to do is going to bring down that space a little bit. Alright, so unfortunately that's as far as we can go using Logic stock plugins to get that marching brass wall of sound that we need for this track. We are going to cheat a little bit. I hate doing that, but we are. We're going to take the sample from the track. I'm 99% sure that Tay Keith used a sample for this track. I believe it's a sample of a high school or college band. Let me know if you know the sample down in the comments below. But I searched the internet, I could not find the sample at all. I did try and find a marching brass sound library or instrument that I could use for this track, and I only found two, one of which I thought would fit perfectly, but unfortunately it's not for sale, Sample Logic's Fanfare. So if you do have that, take this MIDI and let me know if it fits perfectly, because I think that marching brass library or instrument that at least the previews I listened to should fit this. It's a very hard technique to capture the marching brass wall of sound that you need to get the type of sound that you hear in this track, short of recording actual marching band doing it, because there's like 30, 40, 50, 60 players in a marching band playing various different brass instruments and each giving you a different texture tone, the way they blow it, the way the trombones play slightly different note. It accumulates to this nice wall of sound that we can't quite replicate using the stock Logic plugins, unfortunately. So let's cheat a little bit and bring in that sample. So here we are, we're just gonna drag it in right here, and it's gonna layer up all of our brass sounds and gonna give it that wall of sound that we need for this track. So let's go ahead, hit play, and we're just gonna bring down the volume here actually. So it just adds more brass instruments to give us that full sound. I actually tried to replicate it in Logic by duplicating the instruments and using different trombone samples. Didn't help. I tried sort of fine-tuning each instrument a little bit differently to give it a little different texture, because not every instrument is going to be the exact same tune in a marching band. That didn't help either. So this is the best we can do right now. Couldn't find the sample. Again, let me know if you know what it is down in the comment section below. Now let's go ahead and bring in the drums. So for this, we're going to create a new software instrument track. And I'm going to bring in the drum kit I put together for this remake. We'll go to drum kits and we'll go over to the Mexico City drum kit. Here it is right here. Let's start off with the kick. All right, next, the snare. All right, now the hi-hat. What we're gonna do here is we're gonna go ahead and create a new pattern region. We're just gonna draw in our 8th note repeat. Except what we're gonna do here is we're gonna go ahead and convert this over to MIDI and draw in those rolls. So off the top, we get like a little roll happening right here. This note drops down. Then we get another repeat here. Another repeat here. And then instead of this, we're going to go ahead and draw in, I think it was a 32 triplet. Yeah. So let's go ahead and duplicate this over, copy that. So instead of this, we're going to drop this down once again. And for this, we're just going to go ahead and duplicate this over another step. All right, and together we get this. All right, next, let's get to that crash. And we're just gonna take out the last two steps. And last but not least, let's get to the 808. And then we're gonna jump over to the next section. What we got here is, first thing we gotta do is just take out the 808, the crash, and just leave the kick, snare, and hi-hat. And then what we're gonna do here is take out all of our instruments here. Take that out, and we're just left with this. We're gonna copy that down, and we're gonna open up EQ, and we're gonna filter out the top end here just to make it darker sounding for the switch up. We'll just pull this up a little bit more to make it a little bit darker sounding here. That's better. And then we're gonna layer in some horns in the background and some strings as well. We're gonna go over to Legacy, we'll go over to Jam Pack Symphony Orchestra. We'll go over to horns, and we'll go over to the trumpet section legato, this one right over here. And let's go ahead and draw on that chord progression. This would actually be played by multiple trombonists, but we're gonna go ahead and put it all in one MIDI region. Except what we gotta do here is just make this a little bit harder hitting. And then just soften this up as well a little bit more, and we'll bring this into a chord. All right, so we're gonna duplicate this over, and for the second half, it's gonna be the same thing, except that little melody that's in there is gonna be pitched up one octave. So we're gonna take those notes and pitch it up, and together it sounds like this. All right, now we're just gonna add in some EQ and some ensemble to soften it up. So we'll open up our EQ over here, and we're just gonna reset this, recall the default. And we're just gonna take out some of the top end here, so it's not so bright. And we'll bring in Logic's ensemble. Bring it down a bit. All right, that sounds good. And then we're gonna layer that up with some strings. So let's go ahead and duplicate that up. We'll copy over the same pattern. Let's open up our library browser. And the only thing I'm going to change to is 2 strings. And then we're gonna go ahead and bring in the extra violin section 1 legato. And it's gonna sound like this. And then same thing here, we're just gonna bring in some EQ just to take out the top end. So let's go ahead and open up our EQ, and once again, take off that shelf and bring in a filter here. It just fills it out a bit. And together. And then we're gonna get to the last section here. So we're gonna copy over all of this. And for the drums, we are just going to copy over the snare and hi-hat. And we're going to create a new software instrument track. I'm going to bring in the bass layer that comes into this section. So for that, we're going to go ahead and bring in Logic's ES1 synthesizer. And the preset that we're going to use is a preset I like to use all the time, this deep bass preset. Let's go and draw on that pattern. So it's a simple pattern. It's basically following the same pattern as the 808. that that's a little bit too bright. So let's bring in EQ and soften that up. So we're opening up an EQ and just to bring in a filter and really darken that up here. Pretty much the beat right there. Next, I'm going to go ahead and mix it, arrange it, and when we come back, we'll take a listen to the full beat we just put together. Travis Scott's Mexico City. Travis Scott's Mexico City remade in Logic Pro. For Logic Pro users out there, I'm going to go ahead and save this entire session for you. Place it as a downloadable link below this video. If you don't use Logic, I got your back as well. I'm going to export all the MIDI stems, audio stems, and of course include the drum kit that you heard in this remake. You can find that entire playback down below the like button as well. If you do have any questions on this or just want to chat or need suggestions for future videos, go chat down below. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you on the next one. Later.